Women. Men. What the heck is the difference between them? Quite a lot, actually. Females are smaller, live in trees, are more nocturnal, and have softer fur, while males live semi-fossorial lives, are much larger, and have bristly fur and large claws inhibiting the dexterity of their hands. This much is obvious from the evidence of what nouns and animal species are which genders in the Indo-European languages. For this data, I translated almost 200 words into over 8 languages, for nearly 1,500 words in total. For the longest time, they thought this was all the words that could exist, but recently, there's been new mods that really need to be added to my research. Today, we study how humans decided to map gender onto their body parts. Why is this important? Well, it should come as no surprise to no one that the penis is the most masculine body part, considered masculine in 11 out of 13 languages and neuter in the remaining 2. And obviously, it's an organ that only occurred on males. Now, not all organs are sex organs, so we can't expect this same level of correlation, but from the genders of various body parts, we can determine what points of sexual dimorphism existed in humans. To that end, I've selected 100 new body parts, including bodily fluids, and body parts that only occur on other animals to maximize understanding. This I've translated into the same corpus as previously: Albanian, German, Greek, Hindi, Kurdish, Latvian, Russian, Spanish, and Welsh, but with some new additions. Hebrew and Maltese are not Indo-European languages, but belong to the other language family with gender, the Semitic languages. I've also extended the corpus with 3 additional languages: Polish, French, and Icelandic, from the 3 largest language families. Now, this is tricky because it allows the large language families to bias it towards their results, so if the term for a word is cognate between 2 languages sharing one group, the extra one is chopped off. I'm also considering Latvian and Russian to be together because they mostly are. If it swaps gender, I'll continue to include it because clearly something gender relevant must be going on there. So let's skip straight to the results, shall we? The 10 most feminine body parts are the hands, spleen, soles of the foot, tears, legs, veins, kidneys, the scales of a fish, lips, and the palms. The 10 most masculine body parts are venom, milk, the scrotum, the neck, horns, hair, the anus, muscle, brains, and like I mentioned, the penis. But let's break it down by section. It was a bit harder to define sections this time, so I'll take it one step at a time. We can start with bodily fluids. Now, bodily fluids are biased feminine. This is no surprise, as fluids in general seem to match with the softer fur of females. It's only the bone marrow and earwax, both of which are very viscous, that drag it towards masculine. Although phlegm, one of the more feminine, serves as a counterexample, internal organs are even more biased feminine. But besides specific reproductive organs, there doesn't seem to be a clear trend dividing these two, so it could be something we're not seeing. The external organs are similarly inconclusive. There is what seems to be the beginnings of a soft-hard split, with the lips, tongue, and windpipe as feminine, while the tooth, nail, and nose are masculine, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a body part that wasn't pretty soft. Out of the materials, though, there's a very strong male trend. The only feminine materials are skin and veins, which are basically organs technically, and finally, in positions, it seems like places on the head and body, like the neck, gullet, belly, brow, and spine, are all masculine, while extremities like the palm, legs, sole, and hand are feminine, though there is no shortage of counterexamples. So instead of dividing them up by what they are, let's instead divide them up by what they do, or in other words, what organ system they're part of. Not all of these are well represented enough, so starting with the circulatory system, blood and veins are feminine while the heart is masculine. This is probably due to the size difference because males are larger. The square cube law means they need proportionally larger hearts. The respiratory half of this system is a bit more straightforward. The nasal passages are very masculine, and it becomes more feminine as you descend into the chest. In the digestive system, there are a couple of different things happening. Obviously, we have a soft-hard split between the gums and teeth, or tongue and palate. The split between the stomach and intestines points to something I already suspected, that females were far more lanky while males were more compact. Overall, though, the digestive system isn't very polarized, which I assume is because it's inside the body and people didn't know about it too well when they were inventing words. The nervous system is basically broken up into the actually nervous parts and various different eye-related features. Most of the eye, sans eyelids, are feminine, which I think lends credence to a theory about the gender of tears, that males use eyelids to blink away debris while females have access to tears, although any kind of pressure that might cause this evolution is unclear. The integumentary system, which includes mostly connective tissue, is mostly masculine. The only two feminine are skin and a beard, which makes sense. Many primates lack hair specifically on their face, and it seems like in humans this is an obvious point of sexual dimorphism. In the skeletal and muscular system, it's skewed towards male, though it becomes much more even if you only include bones. This may come as a surprise to you, but it's not like female humans didn't have bones. In fact, I believe the hard-soft distinction I keep alluding to is based more on the perceived fragility of females, presumed based on the size difference, than any sort of actual soft-hard distinction. In fact, females probably had more visible bones, given that the skull, jaw, and especially the ribs all skew feminine, although this probably has something to do with with the well attested scientific fact that the first female human was created from the rib of a male. The reproductive system is pretty obvious. The penis, testicles, and scrotum are masculine, while the womb, vagina, and vulva are feminine. The breast is actually masculine, but males, of course, have breasts too, and these might even be larger given all we've learned about the masculinity of fat and muscle as opposed to bones. Milk is harder to justify, but it's likely that human milk is not the first meaning and some other mammal was being milked, mammals, of course, being overwhelmingly masculine. That leaves the fact that semen is slightly feminine. I find this impossible to justify. That leaves the urinary system, which is majorly feminine. Note the significant difference between the male anus and feces and the female urine and bladder. Though these can be misleading, in general, when it comes to anything that occurs on the bottom of the torso, rather than having a single word, languages have three different categories: one which is vulgar, one which is childish, and one which is overly technical and probably loaned from Latin, which gives that one language a large bias. But speaking of that, there is of course a third way to break this up: where on the body it occurs. Dividing everything with a specific location into those, we get the following data. In the head, we get a slight masculine bias. Sensory organs like the eyes, ears, and tongue are all feminine, and the hand in this general idea, well, only the nose is masculine. Again, we see the soft hard division over and over again, with a few key exceptions which I think are the most helpful because they actually indicate exceptional points of sexual dimorphism that existed in humans. Take the brain. By all accounts, it makes sense to be a feminine organ. It's soft, internal, and very much connected to the eyes, and yet it's masculine. This doesn't make any sense. Is it because males are smarter than females? A ridiculous notion. Otherwise, intelligent animals like ravens, bees, and cats wouldn't be feminine. So perhaps they have more of a decentralized nervous system or a more powerful enteric nervous system. The neck again is mostly masculine. Perhaps males have a larger neck, which does make sense due to the widely accepted scientific fact that a piece of the forbidden fruit was lodged in the first male's throat, leading to the evolution of the cartilage protecting the voice box. Moving down into the chest, we see a clear male-female split. Without the nose and mouth to interfere with the respiratory system, we see breath, lung, phlegm, and previously windpipe as feminine, which makes sense. As females lived in trees, they needed to breathe more often to get enough oxygen. Although the belly itself is masculine, both of the organs located there, which tend to be large and full of fluid, such as the bladder, womb, and kidneys, are feminine. However, the pancreas and stomach are still masculine. Pancreas at least is largely a loan word, but the stomach requires an outside consideration. Perhaps the female digestive system is more bimodal, similar to that of a starfish. It certainly makes sense given the frequent comparison between invertebrates and females. The arms are plainly female, from shoulder, arm, hand, and palm. The elbow and nails are masculine, which makes sense because these are the only real parts of the arm you can use to fight with, which supports my theory about the usage of hands in both genders. That leaves the fingers, but check this out. If you curl up the fingers, it actually turns into a fist. They're the same body part. Pretty cool, right? Now, there is a division between claws and nails, which is actually the opposite of what you might think, but it makes sense if you look at it from the other direction. If a female sees a mangled up hand covered in spikes, to her, that's a claw, but to a male, that's just a hand with nails. Rotating down to the loins, again, a lot of these are obviously gendered, and some of these words are unfortunately not sound representations of the actual words used. Even so, the hips and buttocks tend to be feminine, which indicates females may have had a more bipedal lifestyle and so required that musculature, while males may only have been facultatively bipedal. This is corroborated by the legs, where we see something mostly the same as the arms, where joints like the ankle and knee are masculine and everything else is feminine. But given that the female sexual organ, the vulva, doesn't actually show up until the 12th most female body part, so we can assume anything more polarized than that is deeply integral to the male-female sexual dimorphism split. So the palms are easy enough to theorize about. I discussed how male nails partially inhibit the dexterity of their hands, and it appears that it completely inhibits the palms. The penis is obvious, and I already discussed the female enteric nervous system. The lips of a female were much larger, which supplemented their arboreal lifestyle by allowing them to safely graze on thorny branches and fruits, similar to the lips of a camel or the tongue of a giraffe. This illustration depicts one such vegetable, which had to be cultivated into this less thorny variety to be eaten by males. Males were obviously more muscular, while females were a bit thinner, exposing their veins and some of their bones. Because males use the same organ, the penis, for both reproductive and urinary function, regular urination corrects to feminine, which by its own opposition makes defecation masculine. It's possible, although humans weren't venomous, males had more bacterial saliva as opposed to regular saliva, which is feminine. And again, milk is masculine.